following is a conversation with Steven Silver, character designer and educator, best known for his work on iconic shows such as Kim Possible and Danny Phantom. Welcome to the Mo Method, where we talk to creatives who have turned their passions into professions. Steven's journey is a masterclass in how preparation meets opportunity, shaping an impressive career in animation and redefining success through impact. In this episode, Steven walks us through his creative journey, from discovering a sketchbook in his backyard at the age of 6, to honing his skills in caricature art, all the way to designing for major studios like Warner Brothers and Disney. We cover some of his essential character design principles and how proactive networking can open all sorts of doors for you. We also explore the importance for artists to take on an entrepreneurial mindset, the power of building your personal brand, and Steven's profound philosophy on finding your true purpose and happiness in your creative career. Without further ado, here's Steven Silver.
Hi, my name's Steven Silver, and I'm a character designer and teacher in the industry of entertainment. Been doing it for many years, and that's what I'm currently really where my focus and purpose and passion is right now.
So let's take it from the beginning. You've had a very extensive career. You've achieved a lot of big feats in the entertainment industry specifically. What was kind of like the first moment for you as a kid or a teenager where you kind of were like, oh, this is what I really want to be doing?
Yeah, I think I always knew I kind of wanted to be an artist. Just in general, I found like an artist sketchbook laying in my backyard when I was 6 years old, and that kind of started my journey into just drawing all the time. And then in high school is when I was really, doing a lot of drawing. I was working for my high school newspaper as the cartoonist for that. And then after high school, wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I loved caricature. And I ended up, someone told me, hey, they're looking for a caricature artist at a theme park in San Diego. And I got hired doing that. And that was where my journey was going to be. I thought I was just going to be doing caricatures and theme parks, parties, bar and bat mitzvahs, weddings, anniversaries, all that sort of thing. And then also I wanted to get into doing caricature for magazines. And then that led me into character design. So there was never really a big plan into animation or anything else other than me just doing caricatures.
So how'd you kind of like transition from just doing characters in theme parks to ultimately working for Disney?
I ended up I was very active and trying to join up in different groups and associations that I could find around San Diego, and always just paying attention to things. And there was a group out there called the Southern California Cartoonist Society, and once a month they would just bring in guest speakers, and one of the guest speakers was an artist that was a storyboard artist on an animated show called Freakazoid at Warner Brothers. And I met him and was like learned about animation and what that was, and I kept in contact with him, and then asked if I could just show him my portfolio, bring it up to him. And he said, yeah, come on up to Los Angeles. And I went and showed him my work. And he said, hey, you know what? You've really gotten good, from the last time that I saw you. I think they just fired a character designer on a show that they're doing, and they need a new one. Let me take your stuff up there. And I went up with him, and he dropped off my portfolio, and the director wasn't there that day to look at my portfolio and meet him. And then a couple days later, I came back. I just left my portfolio, and they called me and said, hey, we got your portfolio. We want to know, would you be willing to take a test to see if you can match the show style that we're kind of doing on this show? We need another character designer. And I'm like, I didn't even know what a character designer was. I knew nothing about it. All I had was my portfolio of my sketchbook drawings and my figure drawings in there. And they gave me the test, and they gave me like a couple weeks to do the test. But I came back within a week with a stack of drawings, and they really liked that. And then they hired me and gave me the job into character design. So again, it all happened very organically, and just there was no system in place really. It was just like being at the right place at the right time.
I've found a lot of people kind of have that experience of being in the right place at the right time. And one thing that I've heard from a few people that's really kind of valuable is prepare yourself for those opportunities. Like, make sure that you are ready, that when the opportunity presents itself, that you could be like, yeah, here's my work. And, not like, oh man, now I got to start putting it together.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. They say, what luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's the definition of luck. So, oh, you're so lucky. No, I was prepared and I put myself in the right place and an opportunity presented itself to me. And that's what kind of got me through the front door. So that's absolutely correct. And that's why you always want to have an updated portfolio. You want to have an updated website and just putting yourself out there and trying to make those opportunities happen. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, yeah. Who were like some of your key mentors or influences on your design styles?
Yeah, I mean, on my design, well, I've had so many mentors along the way. When I first started drawing caricatures at the theme parks, the owners of the theme park caricature operation became my mentors, just really showing me the tricks of the trade, so to speak. But also, Mad Magazine was the
Mm.
big one. So Mort Drucker for Mad Magazine and Jack Davis for Mad Magazine. Al Hirschfeld, who was just a caricature artist, was another great artist. And these were my real heroes that I was just learning and studying from. And then when I got into animation, just became a lot of different artists like Uderzo from Asterix and Obelix, and to the Nine Old Men, just looking at a lot of their work from Disney, and just kept growing. And then one of my biggest mentors was my director, whose name was Bob Doucette, who hired me on the production for the show Hysteria that I was hired onto at Warner Brothers. Was very caricature heavy, and he was a great caricature artist, and that's where we connected, the caricature aspect of it. And he really, just kind of helped me and guided me along the way and just helped me understand how to do turnarounds, helped me understand, but really just kind of pointed over to a drawer in his office and said, I want you to open up that drawer, and in there's a bunch of model sheets. Just grab those model sheets and start drawing, and that's what I
Hmm.
did, and started looking at all these model sheets. And so, yeah, just along the way, there's been just a lot of great, great mentors.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, just a quick question about like with caricature art. Um, I personally love stylized characters. It's kind of one of my favorite things, specifically in the 3D world. But obviously, there's a lot of crossover when it comes to stylization. Um, and so, how do you stylize? You take a person, you want to kind of nail the resemblance, but obviously you're pushing things to the extreme, like
Right.
almost to the breaking point. How do you kind of balance the two, where you're pushing the extremes and you're making it really really super stylized, but still as soon as you see, like, oh, I know exactly who that is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of it is really all just comes down to observation. And the more you're observing people, you understand what lines you really need and what lines you don't need. And you'll start to, there's a thing that I teach is I call it SODS, which is shape, order, distance, and size. And those are
Mm.
the elements when you're looking at someone that you're just trying to break down, because you don't even need to see all the exact details of someone. You could look at someone, a blurry photo of them, and you're still going to be able to tell who they are just based on those elements of the shape, the order, distance, and size of their face. And then that's where you just start to eliminate lines and go, I don't need those extra wrinkles and lines. I don't even need to, that nostril isn't such a big part of their caricature. Their ears, well, yeah, maybe that's a greater part of their character, hair, or all these, breaking down all the different features and elements. So through that, and
Hmm.
and just repetition and doing it so much, because I've been doing live caricature ever since I started when I was 18 years old, which forces you to make choices really quickly. You got to draw someone's
Right.
face within 3 minutes when you're drawing them live, so you don't have time to work on all the little details, and eventually you figure it out. And then when I get into the studio aspect of caricature and design, that's where my shapes and line work and everything comes into play, just based on that observation and based on the experience.
Yeah, yeah. That's interesting, that kind of that breakdown, because it's true, when you see a blurry photo of somebody, you still can recognize who they are. Like,
Yeah,
it's amazing how little information you need to
exactly,
be
exactly.
recognizable.
Or you can see someone across the room, right? And they might even
Yeah.
be, like, you recognize who they are. You might even see them across the room or something, and you just see their posture or the way they stand,
Yeah.
could be recognizable, of that
Yeah.
person, that aunt or uncle or whoever else, someone you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm curious in your experience. Obviously, the industry is notorious for being a difficult place to navigate. It comes with a whole range of challenges. How did you kind of navigate that, and how did you work through those challenges and still come out successful?
Yeah, for me, I think I've been a business owner since I was 18 years old. So having my own business and my own company, I understood the importance of just networking and communication. And that's really what it just comes down to, is communication and making friends and meeting people and letting them know of what you're currently up to, your situation, again, updating, keeping your portfolio updated. And for me, what happened really was I was fortunate just because I was able to be a part of shows that worked out well.
Yeah.
And again, my just reputation sort of just built upon those shows. And again, people knowing that I'm drawing all the time. This guy's an animal, is always drawing in his sketchbook, is always going to life drawing. And then I got involved in making my own books and publishing my own books. And that ended up putting my name out there even further. So then people would discover me just from my books that I was putting out there and go, who's this guy? And then I'd end up getting jobs through having my book published out there of my own work. And so it was just a lot of that, and always trying new things. I'm never afraid to fail. I'm not afraid of being, which I've been ghosted many times. I've been rejected many times. And to me, it doesn't matter. You just kind of keep working on the things that you want to do and making stuff happen. And that's, to me, how I've ended up, was able just to navigate through my career. But I will say, the industry has changed drastically. Now so many more things are just being outsourced out there, and there's a lot more stiff competition in the industry than there was back in the day. And that's so now it's just really evolved into where it's not as lucrative anymore in that area,
Mm.
I would say. So things have changed. But again, I've always been just entrepreneurial. So
Yeah.
I've never had to, nothing's ever really stopped for me. One thing dies, another thing opens, and it's always been that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that that's kind of an important skill for people to have, and a
Yeah,
sort of
absolutely.
attitude?
It's one of the most important skills. If you don't have that, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because now it's no longer what it used to be in the industry. There's no longer those super long-term contracts for anyone.
Mm.
So those don't really exist where you could be at a studio for 10 years, 15 years. Maybe, if you're on The Simpsons, right? It's different, but there's very far and few shows that are like that. So you have to navigate a lot, and I like to say just have multiple campfires going
Yeah.
in the industry. It's no longer just that one thing just to keep you warm and take care of you. You're all of a sudden that campfire, that fire burns out. Well, I got this other fire going. And the artists that are take on more of an entrepreneurial mindset and aspect of just working on lots of different things, doing different things, those are the ones who are going to survive. The ones who are just focusing on the one type of job in animation are going to be in big trouble.
Yeah, yeah. I was just having this conversation earlier today, like on a Discord server I'm part of, that's with other artists, and somebody was asking. They were saying, I've been doing it for 2 years, kind of on and off. I think this is more like 3D, but the same principle applies. And they're saying, basically they're asking like, how do I get my portfolio to a point where I can get hired by a studio? And I chimed in and I said, listen, I think we're in a time when you shouldn't be putting as much focus into how do I get hired by a studio, and focus more on how can I go out and monetize on my own,
Yeah.
and kind of, and I hate to use this term because it's so like overused, but how do I kind of build my personal brand?
Yep.
And and really, and the person saying, oh, I'm still a beginner. I said, in some ways you're better off as a beginner, because if you kind of go out there and document your whole journey on social media, people love that, people gravitate towards
Yeah.
that. And we're really in this like time when the independent creator has such flexibility to not rely on the big studios to pay them, but they could go direct to the consumer and be like, hey, I started making this show on YouTube. I It's
Yep.
all hand drawn and people love it. And if
Yep.
you could build a following that way. And it's a beautiful
Exactly.
thing, I think. I
Yeah,
really,
it is. It's the new world. It's an indie world now, and again, a lot of things happening and changing, but you have the ability to do it. You just have to be motivated enough to do it. And again, some people are just like, oh, I just don't want to have my own business. I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to try. I just
right.
need some place to show up and sit and draw. That's fine if that's what you want to do, but it's going to be a lot harder on that front. So the more you just
Yeah.
open yourself up to, creating your own intellectual properties, whether it's prints, books, YouTube channel stuff, whatever it is, that's the way to kind of really start trying to wrap your head around a little bit more and start learning just as much as you are learning how to become a better draftsman.
Yeah, yeah. Did you ever have a moment in your career that you kind of felt like giving up, that you felt like this is like, what am I doing? Or have you always been just driven to
Yeah,
succeed? Like,
I've never had that moment in my career. I've always just tried. There's jobs that haven't worked out. I've been laid off from studios. Things have happened, along the way. But I've never had that mindset. I've never allowed myself to have that mindset. It's just, it's not worth it. I was just with a friend today, and he mentioned a good thing. He said a lot of people have all these different problems or fears and all these things in their life, and what they're doing is giving this thing free rent in their mind. They're letting it live in
yeah,
their mind for free. All these, oh my god, this happened and that happened in my past, and all this is like, stop giving that so much energy and time.
yeah,
Just, you got to just keep moving on. You just got to keep working. You got to keep making things happen, and that's what it is. We don't have time to stop. And we live in an age right now where it's so much about all the marketing and putting
hmm,
yourself out there. Again, it's like why people are doing podcasts and putting things. It's always, everything we're doing is, constant strategy, constant marketing, social media, putting yourself out there, letting people know what you do. And that's something you have to, unfortunately do. And it can be a time suck.
yeah,
That's something that's going to be required for you if you want to just not be out of sight and out of mind, and let people know who you are and what it is that you're doing. It's just an essential ingredient in order just to just make this whole puzzle work now.
yeah, yeah. I'm curious for you in your career, was there a moment you could look to and point to as the kind of the moment where you felt like, oh, I've made it. Like I'm in the entertainment industry now. Did you ever have like, was there a
Yeah, I
specific
did. I
project?
mean, I had that moment when I first came and got hired at Warner Brothers Animation. I thought, oh my God, that was my first animation job, and thought,
Yeah.
wow, I've kind of actually made it. This is just unbelievable. But I was shot down very quickly when a friend of mine who was working at the studio, she was, what do you want to say? Just like, just a professional, but been long there, just been there many years in the industry already, like 20 years, a real veteran, I want to
Hmm.
say, in the industry. And she said, oh no, don't get so excited, don't think that this is it, this isn't it, you'll learn, as you keep going. And and she was right. All of a sudden you start to realize, oh whoa, there's layoffs happening all the time now, and this is happening and that. But
Yeah.
when I first walked through those doors, that was a big moment in my life. And then also when I got hired at Disney, I thought, Disney Television Animation, I thought, wow, this is phenomenal. I can't believe I'm actually here, working here on the studio lot where Walt Disney did, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and, everything else that was happening was just really, really cool at that point. But yeah, then, again, you snap out of it pretty quickly and realize, you think the grass is always greener, on the other
Yeah.
side. We always go in that thing and you realize it's just not. You're always going to be hop, skipping and jumping from one job to the next and doing things. But those were moments that I recall, that I remember being very thrilled and excited at those moments. But it's never like, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever it. There's so many things to explore and do on this journey throughout life, and things are going to be changing all the time. You get married, you have kids, you get your first house, this happens, that. It's just all one long journey, just strung out from A to Z.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I'm curious to kind of to delve into your creative process a little bit, and talk about some specific projects. Um, obviously one of the most famous, I think, of your projects would be Kim Possible. It's kind
Yeah.
of the biggest one. So first of all, just out of curiosity, like how does it work with a project like Kim Possible? Let's say, are you solely responsible for designing all the characters? Is it a team that it's you and a few other designers? How does that process kind of work?
Yeah, there's going to be different facets of it. So there's going to be the lead character designer, and there's going to be a character designer on a show. So when you're a lead character designer, usually you're brought onto a project when there's just a script.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real understanding style that hasn't been set yet. It's all the exploration and discovery where you're trying to find that. So on Kim Possible, I was working on another show called Weekenders at the time, and a director, a friend of mine who I worked with on another show called Clerks, the animated series, said, "Hey, we got this new show called Kim Possible. Can you come up, take a stab at doing some designs? We just want to see what you come up with." And so they gave me the script, and I read through it, the premise, and started doing a bunch of development and designs. And then they really liked what I was doing, and that's when they brought me on as the lead designer to start creating the show style and the look of all the characters. And you work through that, and you're working closely with your director, and you're going back and forth, and yeah, change that, fix that. Well, let's make her a little bit more grown up. Let's make her, so there's tons and tons of development work. And then you get executives who don't draw, who come in and say, "This should be like this and this." And you're just like, "Nah, I'm not listening to you," And I remember distinctly my director coming in, getting frustrated that the executives were trying to tell me what to kind of do. Is, "Or don't listen to them, stop listening to them, do
Yeah.
your thing." And then after a while, then you set the style and you're doing that, and then you'll bring on, because the shows are so heavy, then you start bringing on other character designers, usually maybe one, maybe two. And then now the style is set, and now they're
Mm-hmm.
coming on to help you. Like, you got all the incidental characters that may need to be drawn. Hey, we need to draw these extra kids in the school or that. But you're
Mm-hmm.
responsible for doing all the mains and all the lead characters. And
Yeah.
then you're still doing incidental characters along the way, because each script, there may be up to 100 characters that you need to design, and you only get about 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks to design a show. And that's where the breakdown starts to happen. But when I was on Danny Phantom, when I came onto that, well, from the get-go, I was brought in first. I was there for maybe about a month or so, just doing it on my own. And then another designer came on as the lead, and we start breaking, because it was so heavy, and we start breaking up then the shows. Like, hey, you're going to do this script and work on all those characters. You're going to work on that. So on Danny Phantom, there were just two lead designers
Mm.
developing that whole show.
And just out of curiosity, like, how does it work in terms of like owning the designs? So let's say with Danny Phantom and with Kim Possible, how much do you have like ownership of the design, if any, or is it completely like Disney is just we
Yeah,
own it
yeah,
and
you don't own any of it. It's all Disney or Nickelodeon, any of the studios.
yeah,
They have full ownership. You're work for hire. You're just
right,
getting a
right,
paycheck every week. But yeah, it's their intellectual property. They own it. Typically, if you the creator of the show, it depends. Where you can have some ownership of things, where that can eventually happen. Like, it depends what sort of deal you work out, but still,
uh-huh,
even the creators of the show, Mark and Bob, who wrote the show, they were staff artists at the time. They
yeah,
didn't pitch it from the outside. So it's easier if you come from the outside and pitch a show, then you can have more ownership on it. But if you're already in the studio, like Mark and Bob were, where they were already staff artists being hired by Disney to write these shows. They were
mm-hmm,
on Disney's dime as they
yeah, yeah,
created the show. So therefore, again, they don't have merchandising rights or anything like that. I mean,
yeah,
I wish, I
yeah.
did. If I did, it would be game over. But yeah,
Yeah. Is
fortunately not.
that I just the reason why I'm asking, I'm just out of curiosity because I see I follow Butch Hartman
Yeah.
on Instagram, and so I see he posts a lot of like Danny Phantom stuff. So I was just curious like how it works in terms of that kind of dynamic.
Yeah, because you could keep drawing the characters, like he's the creator of the show. While he was
Uh-huh.
at Nickelodeon, it's just like for me, because I'm the designer, I'm just like, well, I'm gonna make my own prints and do that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't own it. I'm not going out there and making T-shirts and
Right.
selling
Right.
millions of things. And so, yeah, when you're doing stuff like that, you kind of have free game, and people know, hey, you're the creator of the show, you're the designer of the show, so people are just gonna, accept that. A lot of times what happens, I'm actually making a sign right now with my buddy whose house he's a sign maker. When I go to conventions, I say Steven Silver, character design, animation character design. I show like Kim Possible, Danny Phantom, other shows that I've
Yeah.
worked on. And because of so many of these shows, people do fan art all the time. They don't realize that like I'm the original designer. A lot of people
Hmm.
do, but then a lot of people don't. So I just have to get an extra sign that says the
Yeah.
original character designer.
Yeah.
People, when they see that, they go, "Oh my God, you're the original guy. You're the guy that designed these characters." And
Yeah.
it's a lot more of a special thing
Yeah.
in their eyes. But yeah, otherwise, just because again, we're associated with the shows, we can
Right.
have
Right.
that credibility and build that up. And of course, that's where, Butch, being the creator of Danny Phantom and Fairly Odd Parents, is gets the credit he deserves on those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, cool. I gotta say, this is it's a little bit of a funny question, but your character, specifically Danny Phantom, let's start with that one. Is an extremely appealing character. Just I told my wife I'd say this, that he was my wife. She said it was her first crush was Danny Phantom.
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah. Yeah.
and then I think the same thing applies to for a lot of people who feel the same way about Shigo out of
Right.
Kim Possible.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
so. Can you talk a little bit about character appeal? Like, how do you make these? What is it that makes these characters so appealing that as kids we look at these characters and there's something about them that's just so exciting?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, of course, has to do with a story and relatability, of it, where
Mm,
you get attracted to them, but also I think just the simplicity of the style itself is so easy to just soak in and see, and
yeah.
sometimes might even be easy for someone to draw. Just it's not so complicated in the line work with all these things, and just the spacing, the facial relationships of the characters. They're not like just ugly looking characters. It's not like you're looking at something like Beavis and Butthead, or you're looking
Right.
at something like South Park, where again those are successful, but looking at them, they're just kind of unattractive drawings. There's
Yeah.
nothing to them. And I think so where artists fall in love with it a bit too is, or even just non-artists, is just the spatial relationship of things. It looks cute, and they
Hmm.
like that, so they're attracted to the cuteness of it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
and then Shigo, of course, she has a rock solid body, where everyone's just like, oh man, she's hot,
Yeah.
so yeah,
It's
it
funny.
works.
Like I see so many things like on social media about like all the kids like grew up like my generation. Like all these shows had like there was like Shigo, there was like Raven from Teen Titans. There's all these like kind of like goth girls or
Right,
like
right.
all the
Yeah,
shows, and
yeah,
it's like I think it affected a lot of the
right.
generation.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, but pulling on that a little bit more, like, so what in your opinion makes a good design? Like you're talking, you're kind of comparing, contrasting, let's say
Yeah,
South Park and Beavis and Butthead to these other shows, like, and you're talking about kind of the spatial distances and stuff.
yeah.
Like, what are the things that make a good character design?
I think simplicity really can help a design, and just spatial relationship and variety of shapes can make
Hmm.
the good design. And just having that combination, mixing those different elements in all there, that's what's going to make it interesting. So you just don't have a bunch of random lines floating around, like when you look at something like Beavis and Butthead, or there's just a wiggliness to the line, or just the
Hmm.
spatial relationship where they're just purposely drawn kind of ugly, right? In that sense, they just kind of have an ugly feeling. Or you look at something like South Park, where it's just doesn't feel like it's well drawn. It doesn't feel like there's a draftsmanship to it. So when
Yeah.
you look at Danny Phantom, you look at Kim Possible, they're well drawn in there. There's construction, really
Yeah.
happening, and real thought behind it, and design, which is giving it that appeal, which makes it look nice. It's like what makes a car look nicer than another car. There's a sleekness, there's a
Hmm.
design, something about it that, then that's what we're attracted to. And I think that we all have, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? But luckily, so we'll all can look at something and determine what we're attracted to and what we're not attracted to. But I feel like everyone has a commonality, especially when we look at humans, because we all have eyeballs and we observe and we know look is good. We can look at someone who has just like we can all agree when we look at a beautiful movie star or a model or someone in a magazine, everyone can say, yeah, that person is beautiful, or
Right.
because we all have that similar taste in a way. Like we're going to look at someone might have a beautiful smile and we look at their beautiful teeth. They're so nice and pearly white compared to someone whose teeth are all rotten and gapped in different ways and black and yellow. You'll go, oh, and everyone will have the same response,
Right.
to it. Or
Right.
you're going to go to a grocery store and you pick out the fruit that you want in that grocery store. We're not picking up the ones that are bruised, that are all wrinkly and stuff. We're like, yeah, that thing's old and probably rotten, but look at this nice fresh apple here and look how green it looks. And right, so we all have a similar taste, and that's where that beauty aspect comes into, and that's where design is beauty. And if it's
Yeah.
things are organized in an appealing way and look good and clear, constructed well, organized well, that's where we determine, yeah, this is a beautiful compared to not.
Yeah. I'm curious. You keep going back to spacing, and I've seen one time on your Instagram, one of your posts, you've been posting a lot of educational sort of content.
Yeah.
And I don't remember exactly. It was a terminology about like the ladder versus
Yeah.
what was that? What's kind of the idea with spacing? It's you
Yeah,
want
so
things.
it's something I teach. I have, well, I have my online school, which is the Silver Drawing Academy, and then I have a book that I put out called The Silver Way, and a lot of those techniques that I teach are based on one of those philosophies. Is called the ladder. I say avoid the ladder. Where the ladder is, if you just look at a ladder, right, it's just very parallel and everything, all the rungs in it are very evenly spaced, and it's just, again, that could work potentially for an aspect. Like a ladder is a great design, right? It works for what it does. But when you talk about it in design, if things just become very repetitive and just too similar in the spacing, it just ceases to become appealing because it's lacking variety. It just becomes boring. It feels like I'm just looking at the same thing. Again, it's the lack of variety. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
where variety plays such a huge, and contrast plays such a
Mm,
huge role in design, that if you're missing those aspects, it can feel generic. It just looks bland. When you look at a ladder, again, it's just kind of boring. It's just all
yeah.
the same. But again, we can look at maybe a tree, or we can look at something else where nothing's evenly spaced and they've got all these different contrasting elements and twigs and branches coming off it. It's just visually more appealing to look at. Or you might look at a mosaic of something that could be in a temple of some sort, and you go, gosh, look how beautiful that is because of all the shapes and the contrast and that variety. Yet if we just saw something that was just repeated, it just becomes repetitive to the point where it's no longer interesting to look at. And that's where
Yeah.
we just look, and you look at a chair, a design in a chair where you could go, god, that's a pretty cool looking chair, because of the variety, the contrast that might be happening with it. So that's where the
Mm-hmm.
ladder aspect comes in, just to try to
Mm-hmm.
avoid it within your designs.
Yeah. It's interesting because like it's kind of two opposite ends, but they kind of both go to the same thing, and that is, on the one hand, they say like with faces that the more symmetrical a face is, the more beautiful it is.
Right.
But at the same time, there's a certain beauty to asymmetry as well,
Yeah.
like what you're kind of getting at. And so it's interesting that kind of they're not exactly the same. They kind of occupy different
Yeah.
spaces,
Yeah.
but they seem to be kind of conflicting ideas almost.
Yeah, well, but even in a face, when you have, again, that symmetry, if everything was spaced so evenly from the top of my
Mm,
forehead to the top of my eyes to where my nose is to where my mouth is, imagine all that evenly spaced would be boring. But a beautiful symmetrical face, even if I just draw it down, my spacing from my head, top of my forehead to my eyes to my nose is different, from the spacing from my nose to my lips is different from the spacing to my
I
chin,
see.
right? So, but yeah, from left to right, I can make that symmetrical, and it could add that beauty. Again, if I get that correct, so it's
Yeah.
more on the vertical aspect
Uh-huh.
where again I can on the horizontal you can get that symmetry and make something beautiful through that horizontal aspect, right? But on the
Yeah.
vertical aspect, that's where you just want to be more considerate on your spacing.
Yeah. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious. What are some of the what are some of the places you draw inspiration from typically?
It's really life observation. I love looking at people. I love
Mm.
looking at faces all the time, and that's where it is for me, where I'm going to draw my inspiration from. What I'm usually seeing, again, I could be anywhere. I could be at the airport. I could be at a restaurant, and I'll see someone's face or something, and I go, God, that or their body type or body shape, and I find that interesting to look at, and that's what really sort of drives where a lot of my design and everything comes into play is from that.
Yeah. What's like the strangest place you've ever pulled inspiration from?
Strangest place I pulled inspiration from. Yeah, nothing. I wouldn't say strange. There's
Or
nothing I would say
unusual?
strange. Yeah, again, I love figure drawing. I love drawing
Hmm.
again the human figure and the nude figure, and that's very inspiring to me. And I get inspired like for doing figure drawing for me is one of the most inspiring places that I draw because I get to use different mediums and I
Mm.
really get to experiment in a big giant piece of paper and I love that and I can draw each time I go into a figure drawing is always going to be different. It's never the same. A model, could be inspiring or not inspiring. There's some modelers I've drawn where I'm just so uninspired by them. It just makes me want to beat them up even more and caricature them even more because I'm kind of like pissed off now that they're just so boring. Their poses are so boring, and that sort of like drives a different sort of level of caricature into me. Yeah.
That's interesting. So the lack of character makes you want to like really push things to
Exactly.
like bring
Exactly.
that life into them.
Exactly.
That's funny.
Exactly. Like, yeah, you got to put life into you. You're killing me. You're so boring.
So when you're like working on a piece, how do you know when it's finished? At what point do you say, okay, I can put my pencil down and I feel this is a finished piece?
Yeah, I mean, I think the minute I just start my cleanup and on that, and I just feel like my shapes are working, my negative space is working, and even if I flip the drawing and I go, yeah, it still looks pretty good, even though it's flipped, then I can start to see that it's feeling good. But yeah, it's typically you just might notice something just feels a little off, or I need to adjust that hand, or there's something just not looking right. But I think that just comes from once again observation and repetition and longevity just in this and doing it for so long you'll just start to
Yeah.
notice those things. You can walk away from something, come back, and you see something that might need to be adjusted, but at a certain point, as a working professional you got to be like, I'm done. I just got to move on. I can't keep beating this up forever, because you'll always maybe notice something, and then sometimes you just gotta just again put that time limit on you and say, listen, I'm not spending 3 hours on this. I got 1 hour to do this, and I gotta call it quits at that time. So it's all about balancing one's schedule and their
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. Going back to like some of the more studio work, how do you kind of um, how do you kind of balance, doing what the customer or the client wants, but also kind of putting your own personal flair into it and kind of giving your artistic voice to a piece?
Yeah, that can be tricky, but also you're aware that the customer is always right. So no matter what you do for that, it's important just to have the certain guidelines. Like, what are you really looking for? Is this going to be for a preschool show? Is it going to be for a action adventure show? Is it going to be more squash and stretch sort of show? So you have your limitations, or you know where you can go with it. And then I'm just going to do my best, and that's why I usually provide many iterations of a certain. I won't just settle. I never. That's the big thing I teach all my students all the time is do not settle, and just
Hmm.
make sure that you're drawing multiple iterations and ideations of a concept, and then maybe if there's one that maybe I've done about 20 different concepts or ideas, and my favorite ones, I'll tighten those up just a little bit more to try to subconsciously convince the client that this is the right direction to go in, and then from there hopefully they pick that one. But sometimes they'll pick ones that you're not in favor of, and again the client's always right, and you just got
Yeah.
to give them what they want.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. It's
it gets tricky because obviously you want to please the client and give them what their choices. They're the ones that are paying, so they kind
Yeah,
of get to have the final say. But then if you're not happy with the design that you made, it gets. I can imagine that could kind of cause some like internally like some strife of like, oh, but I don't feel proud of this piece that I created, and this is not. I've heard from some people who
yeah,
kind of have had situations like that where
sure.
they
Yeah,
get people select the piece that they aren't proud of, and they're like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah.
that's what you picked,
Yeah, I mean it happens, but then again it becomes just a job, and then
Yeah,
like social media and the news and everything else, it's here today, gone tomorrow. It's in
right.
people's mindset at one point. So those are things, hey, I'm not going to put that in my portfolio, and I'm not sharing it on social media. It was just a job. This
Yeah,
wasn't who I am. It doesn't represent who I am. I'm going to maybe disassociate myself with it just a little bit more and not really talk about it. And those are things where, again, you just kind of like, as a professional, you just move on.
yeah. I'm curious to hear from you. Why did you choose to kind of move away from the more studio life and move more towards teaching?
I just felt like it was my real purpose in life. And I
Mm.
just kind of like discovered that. I feel like, honestly, Hashem kind of put that sketchbook in my backyard for a reason. And when I picked up that sketchbook at 6 years old, it was a guide to, hey, Stephen, your purpose in this life is to draw, but eventually your true purpose in this life is to impact people. And I was given all these different opportunities in my life to put myself on the map to where I became well known and more people knew who I was. And then I started putting out educational sort of books, and people were gravitating towards that. It sort of put me out there even more, and I realized that this is my life's purpose,
Wow.
just to do that. So I'm following that guidance,
Yeah.
honestly.
So like
Yeah.
looking to the future, where do you kind of want things to go in the next few years with this kind of teaching?
Yeah, I just want to keep the things that I'm focusing on now. I feel like there's a thing called like content pillars, and
Hmm.
having a content and that brand. And what is your brand? Who are you? And then what are those pillars of your brand? So my brand is with Steven Silver as an artist and educator. So that's what I am. I'm an educator and an artist. And through that, my pillars are with that are doing workshops, just worldwide workshops, traveling around the world doing that. My online school is part of my content, pillars of what I do, my brand, and then also doing conventions and going to conventions, traveling all around, meeting people, going to schools, as well, just doing talks and just trying to educate and bring awareness to the younger generation, because I feel I was given this gift. That my gift
Yeah.
wasn't just to draw. I don't believe my real gift is art and drawing. There's 50 billion artists out there who are way better than I am. But what I have that's adds to who I am is not just the ability to do drawings and design, but my real gift is the teaching. I can get up in front of an audience and I can talk to people and I can inspire them and I can motivate them, and it's natural. And it's nothing that I have to, I'm fighting, I'm resisting. It's just like it's a natural part of who I am. So since I have that gift as well, I feel I got to use this gift in that way. And that's where those are my content pillars, so to speak, is those three areas. And then, I do freelance on the side as well, but I'm a lot more selective, I'm picky. There's certain projects I've been offered that I'm just like, nah, that's just going to be boring to me, or I just know I'm going to be so pissed off and angry when I have to start drawing it that I don't want to
Yeah.
just deal with this. And so that's why I'm just really just trying to build those up and to keep building my brand in that marketing, way to try to educate more and more people that this is who I am, this is what I do, and create more of those opportunities for myself. I'm not trying to get, jobs as a production designer anymore. I've been working from home way before the pandemic for about almost 19, 20 years now.
Wow.
And I was still working for the studios, but I somehow figured it out, made that way to work from home and just do it freelance, and it was acceptable and worked out, and give me the opportunity to keep working on my own stuff, make my own books, make my own, do my own things out there, which
Yeah.
it kind of, you built that up, and then you're putting yourself out on social media just to bring that awareness of what I do. So that's where my real focus is. I just want to keep growing my school, my Silver Drawing Academy. I want to keep being invited to do workshops and talks for schools. I want to keep being invited to go to conventions and meet people. And I think that's where I thrive. And that's what I want to do. I'm not trying to prove anything.
Right.
When I was a younger artist, I was trying to prove myself, and like most of us do, we just want to make a mark and prove ourselves. But I'm not trying to prove myself to anyone. I'm comfortable where I am. I'm comfortable with who I am. I don't need any awards. I don't need any recognition. I'm not chasing that. All I'm just chasing is the ability to impact people's lives and have that person come up to me and say, man, you changed my life. Man, you really gave me some great advice. And and it's real rewarding. I was just at a convention a couple weeks ago where this very talented young artist, well, not young artist, girl came up to me and she said, I've been wanting to thank you for so many years. I met with you about 10 years ago, and you gave me the best advice ever on building and on having a family and why it's important to have a family now and not wait. And because of you, I made that decision to have a family. And now here's my two beautiful children because of
Wow.
you. And you told me, and I was able to do my artwork, and I hear these stories all the time, people coming up to me all the time, because of you, I'm doing this now in my life, and I made this happen. And that's the best thing that I could, that's better than any Emmy, any Oscar, any sort of award. None of that stuff matters. It's those personal relationships that I'm building that to me are more impactful. So at the end of the day, I can say, yeah, I followed Hashem's, guidance, what he wanted me to do in this world. So at the end of the day, I'm gonna have no regrets. Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a beautiful outlook to have, because
Yeah.
I think so many people, especially in the entertainment industry, do get very caught up on the aspects of their career of kind of the
Recognition.
not to say the recognition, and not even necessarily, I'm not trying to say it's shallow necessarily.
Yeah.
Like I understand, like you want to be recognized for
Sure.
your work, but to have those personal impacts on people
Yeah.
is so much more such a more lasting effect
Oh
in a lot of
yeah.
ways.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's
Because again, hey, if I asked you who won the Academy Award last year,
right.
you don't know. 2 years
Right.
ago, you might say, yeah, Tom Cruise or that person has won an Academy Award. But again, no one thinks about that. No one knows who won any award the previous year, or even the animation award. What studio, who, when. It doesn't matter. But going, those people that have impacted lives, every single human can say, I know who affected my life. I know who someone that I met at a convention one time, or this person or that thing that really, affected me. It could even be a television series, right? I hear it all the time. You were my childhood, right?
Yeah.
I know what shows were my childhood, from Tom and Jerry to Scooby-Doo to the Flintstones, all those things. That was my childhood. That made an impact on my life. An award someone won, I don't give her, it doesn't matter. But that style, that, again, that specific artist, I can name all the artists that have made a real impact. I don't care whether they won an award or not, but I know that artist for Mad Magazine made a huge impact on my life, and I will always remember them, and they will never leave my mind till the day I die, because they made that impact on me. To me, that is so much more rewarding. And then you end up collecting their work or having something. And that's what's nice about conventions. Why people attend my workshops and things, because I've made an impact on their life. And then it makes it even more special to them. Or they buy that print from you that you go, oh my God, that was my childhood that you drew. And now you signed it. And now I got that hanging on my wall. That's so much cooler and so much better and so much more purposeful and meaningful. And that's where the teaching, I know, again, I have the ability to teach, and that's one of my greatest strengths. And so it would be a waste of my God-given talent not to be a teacher in this life. Yeah.
Yeah. They say, there's a saying, like, people always remember how you made them feel. That's like
for sure.
everything else. That's like, if forget about like the first impression things, but like if you
Yeah,
have 7 seconds, it's how you make somebody feel is
yeah,
something that they sticks with them for the rest of their
yeah,
life, like you're
yeah.
saying, and it's a
Impactful.
beautiful outlook to have. Really, it's
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it is. It is. And again, it doesn't take effort or energy from me. It's just, to me, it's
yeah,
just part of the Ten Commandments, really, so to speak. It's like, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it's
yeah,
just, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt, all these things, right? It's just like common sense. It's a natural part of you that as long as you don't have to think about it. It's just like, I am
yeah,
me. I'm just being me. I'm being authentic
yeah,
to me. I don't have different voices. I don't have different personas. You're going to get me every single time, where a lot of people, because of social media or even fame, they're different people. They have alter egos. That person who acts a certain way towards fans or anyone else out there is so different from in their personal life and their family. Like, that person's such a horrible husband and such a horrible father, but out to all their fans, oh my God, what a show. And they're so sweet and gentle and kind. And oh my God, they're the greatest, but they're not true to themselves, and they
yeah,
struggle and they live a life
yeah,
of fake and falseness, and it's just not real. So the best thing anyone can be is authentic. Just be
yeah,
true to yourself, be authentic. Don't try to be someone else you're not. And that's what, in teaching, why when people ask me, can you give me any advice for teaching? I got to do a talk, I got to do a lecture. I said, yeah, just be yourself. Just tell people who you are. Tell people what you've done. Just act natural. Don't try to pretend to be someone else that you're not, or make something up that you're not. Because if you're just true to yourself and be yourself, man, life is so just easy. You just kind of
yeah,
going with the motion and just experience what you're going to experience. That's what it's about.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. So I'm curious, kind of segueing from there, what's some of the like advice you'd give to people who are starting out their careers, with that, with all that, guidance, but in terms of the more technical side of things, what are some of the pieces of advice you'd give to somebody looking to break into the design industry, whether it be character design or animation or,
Yeah.
trying to build a career out of it?
I think it comes down to just know what you want. Know what you
Mm,
desire. What do you really want to have happen? You can have that. What's that? Where do you see the picture? It's like building a puzzle, where when you go to the store and you're looking at all these different puzzles on the shelf, hey, am I going to make a puzzle of this castle? Am I going to make a puzzle of that character? Am I going to make a puzzle of that, again, that, but whatever it might be, that pond, it's just like, you look at that picture and you go, I'm going to make that, I'm going to build that. And how do you do it? Piece by piece. And it could be
yeah.
a 10-piece puzzle, it could be 1,000-piece puzzle. Whatever it is, that's what you got to determine for yourself. What's that puzzle picture that you want to build in your life? And then when you can envision that, you start to put it piece by piece together. But what happens when you finish with that puzzle? You're going to start a new one. There's no
Hmm.
final destination. There's no final thing. There's no ultimate goal. And you might experience that puzzle is very frustrating and you just want to surrender and give up on that. And maybe you do. And you go, I'm kind of bored with this. It's not what I really felt I wanted it to be. And so nothing's a lifelong sentence, right? It's just like, we have the ability, unless you commit a horrible crime, we have the ability to change what it is that we are working on or what our goals are. So I think, know what you want, try to do it, and then you might decide it's not for you. Like, I thought I wanted to be an oil painter. Like, I tried, like Norman Rockwell, one of my favorite artists. Hey, I got to start doing oil painting. And I started doing oil painting and realized painting isn't for me. It's not my love. It's not where my interest lies. And I just I'm going to give up on this and I'm going to do something else. So that's the most important thing you can do as a creator, is just really just try to find that thing that it really inspires you, that you can become passionate about. So when you do get rejected, when things don't work out for you, when you do get ghosted, you still go, yeah, but I still want this. I love this. I'm going to keep trying to get better at it. And that's what you can do. And just get better at your draftsmanship, get better at drawing, get better at painting, whatever it may be. You can always use that knowledge in the future to help you. But you got to have a clear picture on where you want to go. Otherwise, where you going? You're not going to jump into your car and just start that engine with nowhere to go. Every time we
Yeah.
jump in that car or we jump on a bus or a bicycle, we got a destination in mind, and then we're eventually going to get there. But we never jump in a vehicle without knowing where our destination is. So that's your body is a vehicle, and that's the driving force. So you got to turn on that engine within yourself, but you got to know where that destination is going to be.
Yeah, so let me ask you, what's your current destination and your current puzzle that you're working on?
Yeah, for me, it's those pillars of just keep growing my school, my online school, keep doing more workshops, and keep attending more conventions. So it just kind of like ties in with that. So now it's
Yeah.
basically, I believe it's this. I believe these three factors. There's aiming, creation, and maintaining. So you
Mm-hmm.
got to aim, for something. Imagine like I want to grow an apple tree. I need some apples. That's my aim. So now I got to get that seed, and I'm going to plant that seed, and I'm going to create it. And in order to create it, I got to keep watering that plant every single day until it starts eventually get it coming out of the ground. And then what's my job? To maintain it, to maintain the health of that tree and just keep bearing its fruit every single year. I can't stop watering it, otherwise it's going to die. And that's to me what all this is about. It's any company. It's the same thing. You might say Apple, computers, everything else. Hey, Steve Jobs, he had an aim, and he created this company, and through that aim, he was able to create it and build it. But what is he doing? What are they doing now? They're just maintaining it. They're maintaining
Right.
that. They're by, also creation. They're able to create new products and do things. So just follow that thing, aiming, creation, and maintaining. And that's what I'm doing right now. I've aimed already. I've created, and now I'm in the phase of just maintaining and keeping it alive. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you I'm curious, have you invested at all into like building a community online? I know it sounds like you invest a lot of time and effort into going and developing kind of face-to-face
Yeah.
community. Have you played around with any kind of online community sort of platforms?
Well, just mainly like the big ones. I mean, where my community lies is through Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So
Mm.
I'm on those, platforms where I've grown a community, through those, and that's where I'm always basically posting my material and sharing my material in order just again just keep growing that. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm tied in with those ones.
Yeah. Have you ever looked at like a Discord or something of that sort,
I
or like
do. I do have a Discord. I got one for my school, and I did do one on the side, but it became this extension of something that was taking a lot of time or work to
mm,
constantly maintain those things, and it wasn't
yeah.
something. I don't want to spread myself so thin that I'm
Right,
having.
right.
I'm on TikTok too. I just really started TikTok, so I don't really have that many community followers right now, but I'm starting to build that up just a lot more and realize. So again, now that's four platforms, right? You got
Yeah.
TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It's how many more do you want, and
Yeah.
that's where I just don't want to spread myself so thin, and I just want to focus on those areas. But yeah, Discord would be another beast in itself, because you're having
Yeah.
to really communicate with people back and forth, and yeah, so it gets trickier. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you find that you're doing separate content for each platform, like Instagram to YouTube to TikTok to Facebook? Is
Yeah,
it the
I
same or
do. Yeah, but I'm trying to tie it all in together now a little bit
yeah.
more. I'm actually trying to right now. I'm focusing on trying to rebrand myself. Have been very scattered, and I really just want to rebrand into that educational aspect even more. So whatever I create on for Instagram, I want to share on TikTok, and then I'm going to share
Yeah.
that on YouTube and just try to take so I can kill like 10 birds with one
Yeah.
stone, right?
Yeah.
And not having to reinvent every time. So now it's just about, hey, create that one video, and then you can split that up if that needs to be broken into 60 seconds or and spreading it so that I'm not just overdoing it. Because again, I think the most essential thing we want in this life, we all want in this life, is time. And
Yeah.
that's the most important thing. We want time for ourselves, we want time for our families, we want time for our friends, and having that time is vital. So that's where I'm focusing on, really just trying to make sure that my time is being used wisely and not
Yeah.
just working on so many 50 billion different things that are just like, man, I got no time to relax and I want to
Right.
relax. Yeah.
Right. How do you kind of strike that work life balance, as people like to call it, and
Yeah.
make sure that you're having time for your family, but also kind of achieving all these ambitious goals?
Yeah, it's something that I feel like I've always just been good at, and I keep a calendar. I use Notion, which has a calendar where I'm able just to look every day and I write things down. I usually have a task of maybe about 5 to 6 things a day that I maybe need to do and accomplish, but when I'm done, I'm done. Right. So
Mm,
there's a philosophy that I follow by this guy that I read a long time ago. His name was Wallace Waddles. And he said, don't do tomorrow's work today. And I always
mm,
just stuck with that. It's just like, just because I've finished my task today, I'm not going to jump in tomorrow's work. That's for tomorrow. So now I can have that time. And that way I'm usually always done with my work by about 5 o'clock. And then,
nice.
my kids are growing up now, but they're out of the house, but I was very conscious growing up. I knew that I got 18-year commitment with these guys and I want to make sure that I'm there for them. So I made time all the time to go to their plays and go to their sports things and always be there and be a real active father and always be present, be a real present husband. I don't
Yeah.
work on the weekends, and that's always dedicated to my family and my wife now. My wife travels with me all the time now when I do all the different conventions and talks. And that's where I just, again, very conscious of
Yeah.
it because, again, I don't want to be working all the time. I got to have time for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Just out of curiosity, did your kids grow up watching the shows that you were making?
No, no, no. It did. Well, when my kids were born, they were born at the when like Danny Phantom and Kim Possible were coming out. So they're 21 and 22, and that's
Okay.
when Kim Possible came out like 22 years ago. So it was
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
like happening. They've watched them now. They're
yeah,
familiar, but even I haven't watched the shows. People ask me about different shows. Hey, what do you think about that show and that season? What's your favorite episode? And said, I've never watched all of Kim Possible from start to finish, all the 4 seasons. I've never watched all of Danny Phantom, so I don't know.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
you're in it,
Right,
you're in
for
the
sure.
making of it, and you're part of it. It's just like I
Yeah,
remember hearing George Lucas say he missed Star Wars. He missed the
yeah,
phenomenon because he was so involved in editing it. He didn't get to see it with fresh eyes and go, oh my
yeah,
God, this is so cool. Like, I never saw those shows with fresh eyes, like, oh wow, this is really cool. It's like I was in the trenches making
yeah,
it, all the pieces of the puzzle. So I never got to experience it like so many other people did.
yeah. And there's kind of a beauty in that, though. Like it's definitely a different sort of enjoyment that you get,
Yeah,
but like there is something to be said for that also. Like
absolutely. Yeah.
you don't get to experience it in the same way that the consumer does, but you kind of get a certain like elevated pleasure
Yeah,
of getting to
absolutely.
see.
Yeah.
Like for me, I've always loved kind of that behind the scenes, how things are
Yeah.
made. Like
Yes.
for me, that like so it's obviously, like again, using the George Lucas example, like yeah, it's disappointing that you don't get to experience Star Wars in the same way everyone else did, but at the same time, then you get to be like, yeah, but I made it. Like
Exactly.
that's
Yeah. I was on the set, I got
yeah,
to see,
yeah,
all these things. Yeah, absolutely. Without a doubt. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. So, one last question. That this is a question I pose to all my guests, and that is, how do you define success?
So I mean, happiness, to me, it's not, success isn't defined by monetary. It's, in that sense where I think a lot of people define, are you're successful if you've got the awards, if you've made all the money and all this. To me, it's all about just happiness and enjoyment and time. Like, to me, that my success to me is that the fact that I have such a great relationship with my kids who want to tell me everything, and they're all grown up now, right? That I was able to provide for them from the time they were 0 to 18 years old, and they were able to have a comfortable life, and they got a great relation, and we got a great relationship. To me, it's those relationships. That's where success lies with me. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Where can everybody find you online on social, your academy, all the information to find
Yeah.
you online?
So my school is silverdrawingacademy.com. You can find me on Instagram at stevensilver7. You can find me on YouTube at Steven Silver with a PH in there, and those are the places just to kind of really find me and see what I'm up to, and upcoming events, upcoming shows, and things that I'm going to be going to.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.